Member for Monash.
Madam Deputy Speaker, superannuation is money that belongs to Australians for their retirement. The same goes for death benefits, which are held by super funds and distributed to a person's nominee or dependents on their passing. Now, for too long, superannuation service standards have taken a back seat to big super companies who are too well looked after under this government. I've assisted constituents who have had to wait years to access their own money. In one case, a constituent approached me after her late husband passed away from a terminal illness. He had wanted to say, while he was still alive and eligible to access early withdrawal of his super, "Kids, I know this is not going to change everything, but here is something." And Australian Super deprived him of that conversation while he was still alive. They then messed around his grieving widow for months upon months before I assisted in helping her to access her own money. Now, it turns out there are 4,000 Australians waiting up to 4 years to access their own money. One of the first things I did when assisting constituents was ask the corporate regulator, ASIC, surely there must be a mandatory minimum payout timeframe. It turns out there isn't. ASIC says it should be paid out as soon as practicable. So while I welcome Minister responsible for superannuation, Daniel Molino's appearance at the National Press Club tomorrow, presumably to announce reforms that we've been waiting 18 months for, it's 18 months of soon, but 18 months that is too late. In January 2025, the federal government announced plans to introduce mandatory service standards, and Australians have been waiting month after month, including many of my constituents, and I want to pay tribute to Irene Thomas, as well as other constituents I have assisted on these issues. ASIC last year announced a landmark legal action against Australian Super, who kept 7,000 of its customers waiting years to access their own money. I also want to pay tribute to Super Consumers Australia, who have released a landmark report which makes for very sobering reading, and it was released only a few weeks ago. It found, among a few things, that Australian Super didn't bother to answer its phone in 90% of cases, that 15.5 million Australians do not have a binding death benefit nomination fund, and I don't think big super companies are doing a good enough job of informing their customers of their rights on these issues. A study of 20 major super fund call centres found widespread service failures. So I say to this government, stop sticking up for big super day after day. It's time you got behind workers, families and battlers.